Strange that such a tiny thing, a shred of burlap and silk with a single lock of hair nailed to it, could bring a kingdom to its knees. Small things frequently have enormous consequences.
So this is the doll that holds the soul of King Atma's daughter. So now we're going to bring it back to him and hopefully restore her to her old self and gain his allegiance to fight this huge army that's invading from the north.
I entered the court with the doll-maker's head in one hand and the doll containing the girl's soul in the other. I placed them both before the king and watched his eyes catch fire. With the doll in their possession, the court's sorcerers could restore his daughter's soul.
I do not know that I can thank you enough, warrior. My kingdom is but a small price to pay for my daughter's life. Willendorf is yours if you wish it.
'Tis not your kingdom I desire, but your army, Otmar. I require troops to vanquish the horde that descends upon us from the north.
Very well. Courtiers, fetch me my armor and mace. There is war to be waged!
The scourge of Nosgoth is upon us, friends. We shall die today as heroes, lest we live tomorrow as slaves. Ready thine arms, for Nosgoth!
In the distance I saw the Nemesis armies march forward, a black tide that would soon wash over the armies of the Hope.
So Kain joins the battle on the side of the Army of the Hope against the Nemesis. The Nemesis army is, of course, these red guys that I'm exploding here. And he notices that there's so many of them. It's like a tide of people that will surely outnumber the Army of the Hope. But, they still give it a try because it's a lose-lose.
They came at me in throngs, no fervor as strong as that inspired by a madman. The Nemesis armies were fierce and showed no signs of subsiding. The tides turned with Otmar's death. I watched as the remaining survivors of the armies of Hope fled to the safety of the forest. The battle had decided its victor. The fate of Nosgoth now lay in the Nemesis' hands. I sated my thirst on warriors of Horde and Hope alike, the dying relinquishing their final moments to give me strength.
So I missed it there, but the king is on the battlefield, and as you're fighting, you see him fall. And Kain notes that basically the Army of the Hope, after the king falls, they all lose their morale, and they begin really getting crushed. And the Nemesis just keep coming and coming and coming. And although Kain is able to, face them, it's like, look at this. They're all dead. Kain is just up against the Nemesis, and they're even overrunning him. So he's just kind of making his way through these fields of death until finally. So something happens, and the world around Kain shifts. And all of a sudden, where there was a battlefield and death, there's just kind of greenery.
At once the battlefield was gone. Where the ground was caked with blood and dirt, there was lush greenery. Where chaos reigned only moments before, this damning calm prevailed. Alas, it seemed I was stranded here. The time-streaming device lay in pieces at my feet.
So Kain has traveled in time using that device that he found from the planer. And unfortunately, right after it happened, the device broke.
Would you stand idle as vermin destroy your crops? No! As your house burns? No! Will you allow this evil to continue? No! Will the wickedness end? Yes! Do you believe? Yes! Yes! Then take me to your king, so that I can prepare you for the onslaught.
So that was happening a little bit to the north of where Kain was, and we see like a familiar face like riling up a crowd and saying that there's some kind of problem that they have to address, right? Now, Kain doesn't really know that that's happening, but he's heading to the north to try to figure out where he is and what's going on.
William the Just rules this land, stranger.
Help us get rid of those vampires. A hunting party begins tonight.
Welcome, stranger, to the most prosperous land in all of Nosgoth. Taxes are down, spirits are up.
Ah, so it seemed I was in the land of William the Just. 50 years before the battle I had just escaped would take place.
So Kain's in the past, and the townspeople are upset because there are these raids happening by vampires in the area. And William the Just is really their only, like, defense. And he's known as, like, this marvelous king.
The stronghold of William the Just. 'Twas time for me to pay a visit to he who would become the nemesis and force Nosgoth on its knees.
So basically, Kain decides that he's gonna kill Hitler before he becomes Hitler and stop all that shit. What could possibly go wrong?
Yes, these weapons you have provided will see to that. Pray tell, Mobius, what game do you play?
None, my lord. I only wish to aid you in vanquishing your foes. The weapons are but a token of my goodwill.
And the news you bring, a vampire said to slay me? Where did you come upon such knowledge?
'Tis of no consequence, sire. 'Twas only out of concern for your majesty's life.
Perhaps. Very well, then. You may leave me now, but should I wish to speak to you...
I will know, your majesty, and I shall be there in time.
Alright, so this is super important. Kain catches William the Just, that guy in that crazy armor, talking to Mobius, who is the oracle that Kain talked to before. And what Mobius is doing is he's given the king and his army some weapons, possibly from the future, to like bolster their strength. So what's happening is Kain has caught the oracle basically changing the future. This Just king was like a really good guy until he was visited by Mobius and kind of got twisted into the nemesis. Here Kain finds a map of Nosgoth, and it has swords placed in some of the capital cities. It's just like evidence of the king's plans now to take over basically the entire known world. So basically Kain is like, yep, this is a Hitler. I gotta stop this. So Kain heads off and equips
The Soul Reaver
to deal with this tyrant king. So Kain is going to face off against him, and I want you to pay attention to when the king swings his sword and what the sword he's holding looks like.
Ah, yes, the vampire. Mobius told me you would come.
The king's sword sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
As his guards rushed to save him, William the Just's blood was already renewing my strength, replacing the life his sword had stolen from my veins. The poor fools, come to aid their fallen leader. Let us have some amusement.
So yeah, Mobius armed William the Just with the Soul Reaver, the most powerful weapon that Kain has. And in the battle, as you see there, the weapon is broken, or William's version of the weapon is broken. So his version might actually be a version that's from the future, seeing as Kain's Soul Reaver isn't broken at all. And then we head up here, and we find, conveniently, another time streaming device.
A time streaming device. Strange. When coincidence seems too convenient, I prefer to call it fate.
So Kain picks up the time streaming device he finds, and he is instantly whisked away from when he is back to the future. And now, instead of being like this fortress of this really evil guy, the castle's grown over and kind of falling into disrepair.
With William the Just dead, Mobius's plans have been thwarted. His pawn was removed from the game.
So there we go. Hitler's dead before he ever becomes Hitler, and he can't conquer the world. Good job! Now, on his way out of the castle, Kain fights these, what look like brigands or maybe thieves or something like that. They're just kind of armed with pitchforks and other farming tools, stuff like that, right? But they're just kind of holed up in the castle.
I found myself once more in the Nosgoth I knew. The carnage from battle was gone. Yet there was something amiss. From the distance, I heard cries, and a breeze from the south carried with it the faint odor of vampire blood. Twould seem the folly fell upon my own shoulders. With their sainted King William dead by my hand, the people of the land were consumed by a hunger all their own, for vampire blood.
Whoopsie! So, because Kain, a vampire, killed this king that everybody loved, the people hate vampires and started like a new vampire purge.
As I wandered about more, the shrieking and cheering became more apparent and defined. There was some sort of gathering to the south, for with each cheer, I smelled an outpour of blood.
So by killing William, Kain basically caused a holocaust for vampires. Like, the entire world hates them.
I make no pretense to justify my killing, yet these vampire hunters would cloak their bloodlust beneath a veil of righteousness. Hypocrites! They would make themselves judge and jury. Very well then, let us see how they take to my role as executioner.
So Kain finds this mob of people at a guillotine, and leading the mob is Mobius, and in the guillotine is Vorador. As powerful as he is, I guess he couldn't handle 200 guys just jumping him. Kind of like Arthas.
We are free of this unholy scourge! Not yet, my friend. Would you be free of the plague if only one city was cleansed? No! Would you spare one wolf in the pack that has devastated your herd? No! Then let us destroy them all! He is the last! Destroy him!
The people will not rest until Nosgoth is purged of your kind.
I had been betrayed. In my haste, I had not realized it before. That sigil on his forehead, the Oracle of Nosgoth, was in fact the time streamer Mobius, and I had followed his advice. How much of my quest was of his design? Willendorf? The Battle of the Last Stand? William the Just? Was this the trap he had fashioned for me?
We will send you back to the grave, whence you came, vampire.
So yeah, the Oracle is actually the Time Guardian, and he has been manipulating Kain ever since he met him.
I have seen the future, Kain. You are not in it.
Mobius basically set this trap to not only kill Kain, who's the guy who annihilating the Circle of Nine, but to also wipe out all vampires from the world. And he's basically succeeded. Kain is the last living vampire. So Kain goes to face Mobius, and Mobius is not really a face-to-face kind of guy, so he kind of stays out of Kain's reach, and he pulls, you know, minions from different times to fight Kain for him.
From the present.
So yeah, here's some more like just riveting gameplay. Such a cool boss fight, yeah. Fighting people from the past and the present and the future. You know, I pick on this game because it, you know, it hasn't aged well, but it's such a good game. Like, for its time, it was amazing. The story is so good. And here I am fighting, I guess, myself from the future. Or maybe, I don't know. I think maybe it's just like another vampire with Kain's stuff. I don't think it's actually supposed to be Kain. But it's definitely supposed to be like, oh, what a twist moment. But it's not actually part of the story. I don't think Kain actually fights himself. Oh my god. Fucking die. Thank God. Oh my crap. And then Mobius just goes down in one swing.
Ironic. By going back in time and altering the past, you turned William the Just into the Nemesis.
Aye, you have seen my plan, vampire, as I have seen your destiny. The future says you die.
But I am dead. As are you.
Got him. Go back in time now, old man.
I knew that Mobius's hourglass was the focus of his time-streaming magic. Farewell, sorcerer. The sands of time have ceased to flow for you. The hourglass of Mobius allowed him to sift through the sands of time, giving him dominion over past and future.
Well done, Kain. Mobius did so love playing the trickster's part. His guise as the Oracle served his schemes well. Pity with all his plots he failed to plan for you. Come to me, my undead son. Make haste to the pillars. The stage is set for the grand finale. You will have your vengeance.
So the necromancer that created Kain calls him back to the pillars and basically says that the final members of the circle will be there. So Kain turns into a bat, flies on over to finish this quest once and for all.
You betrayed us, Mortanius. You had Kain killed and turned him into a monster. You set him upon us.
It had to be. Nopraptor's insanity poisoned all of our minds. The Circle had failed in its sworn duties. It had to be destroyed.
Failed our duties? Idiot! The Circle exists for us. We don't exist for it. Our powers will save or damn Nosgoth at our whim. Stand with us, Mortanius, or die.
Then I shall die.
So this guy in purple here is the alchemist, the guy who ran away when Kain fought Malik and the other two members of the Circle. And this, of course, is Mortanius, the necromancer, the guy who created Kain, who is also a member of the Circle. He's the aspect of death, which you can see because he kills the alchemist 3 times. That was 1. 2. And then 3.
If the Circle is to be destroyed, you have to die as well, Necromancer. I admire your cunning, but you will not escape your fate.
Nay, I will embrace it. But my death will leave one more to take, Princeling. Finish me!
So apparently the necromancer Mortanius realized that there was a big problem with what was going on with the Circle. He knew that he had been corrupted, and he wanted to restore the Circle of Nine to its former glory, even if it meant his own death. He's the one who also had Kain killed and resurrected him so that he would be a vampire and he would be powerful enough to kill the other members of the Circle of Nine. Oh my god, there are so many skeletons. Oh, ow, 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 ow. Hiya!
Save Victor!
You thought yourself a king, when in fact you were a pawn. You have served me well, Kain.
I serve no one.
Indeed, such narrow vision. Don't you see? My silencing of Ariel and its calculated repercussions is but the first act in my theater of Grand Guignol, of which you are the tragic hero. Play on, little vampire. Play on.
Ve Victus!
Okay, it's a little hard to understand what's going on there, but the necromancer was being possessed by a demon. It's not that the demon is the necromancer, he was being possessed. And the demon, not the necromancer, is the one who killed Ariel, the Balance Guardian, and set this whole thing in motion. Also, this demon is mentioned by Ariel at the very beginning of the game. She says, "Beware the unspoken." That's this guy.
The scales of Anacroth, used to measure out unholy substances in alchemy.
This is the alchemist's item. I just wanted to show you so you see it. And this is the necromancer's.
As I touched its surface, calm filled me. Gone was the hunger, the rage that would entice, and only the sweet, dark serenity of death remained. Mortanius's death orb.
I am the last pillar, the only survivor of the Circle of Nine. At my whim, the world will be healed or damned. At my whim.
So, after all that, Kain is the last pillar of the Circle of Nine. And now he basically has a choice. If he sacrifices himself, he can save Nosgoth. Nosgoth will be purified of what is corrupting it, and everything will be puppies and kittens, and everything will be fine and fun and dandy, but Kain has to give up his life. Or he can basically stay alive, and the corruption will spread to the other pillars again, because he's like the balance. He's like the center pillar between all of them. So if he doesn't sacrifice himself, they'll get corrupted again, and the world will be thrown back into chaos. And because Kain is such a great guy, he, of course, sacrifices himself for the greater good. Right?
Once I embraced my powers, I realized that Vorador was correct. We are gods. Dark gods. And it is our duty to thin the herd.
There you go. So, princess. Can call me a princess because I didn't find all the secrets. So Kain, Kain does not make the sacrifice. He says, "No, I don't want to die," and he basically damns the world. And the story will continue in the next game, Soul Reaver, which we'll look into after this. So this is Legacy of Kain. This is the beginning of the vampire, one of the best vampire stories I've ever run across. A lot of the things that are set up in this game are kind of like knocked down in the other games, or come to fruition in the other games. This is a lot older game. It hasn't aged well. There's a lot of like bugs and stuff to it, but the story is really great, especially when you go through those later games. Here's some of those amazing voice actors that will, or that made this game great and will continue to make the series great as we continue on. So yeah, overall, like, you know, it's an aged game, but it was a lot of fun when it came out, and you know, the story and the writing is just super amazing. I really hope that they maybe take another look at this, although we lost Tony J, and a lot of the other voice actors are, you know, aging. So I don't know, they'd have to pick up new voice actors, which would kind of ruin the experience, I think, if they ever remade the game. But it's such a good story, and I really hope that it gets a chance further down the line. Alright, see you in the next game.
Fe Victus!